They say home is where the heart is, but what happens when your own family makes you feel like a stranger in the very house you built? I'm Samuel Blackwood, and for decades, I was a celebrated architect. My masterpiece, Blackwood Manor, wasn't just a house, it was a testament to my love for my wife, Eleanor, and a legacy I hope to pass down to my daughter, Olivia. It was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place where memories were made and cherished for generations. But somewhere along the way, the foundation started to crack, not in the bricks and mortar, but in the relationships within those walls. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of how one sentence, a seemingly insignificant phrase uttered by my own daughter, led me to pack up everything and sell the mansion I poured my heart and soul into. This isn't just a tale of family drama or a story about money, it's a cautionary tale about the corrosive power of greed, the illusion of control, and the surprising strength one can find when forced to confront the truth. I'll reveal how my dream home transformed into a battleground, how I uncovered a web of deceit spun by those closest to me, and the drastic measures I took to reclaim my life and my legacy. You'll hear about the subtle shifts, the growing disrespect, and the shocking betrayal that ultimately forced my hand. It's a story about recognizing when the people you love have become unrecognizable, and the difficult decision to protect yourself, even if it means letting go of everything you thought you knew. The turning point, the moment everything shifted, came unexpectedly. It wasn't a grand argument or a dramatic confrontation. It was a simple, cutting remark, delivered with a casual cruelty that still stings to this day. I was in my study, surrounded by blueprints and memories of Eleanor, when Olivia walked in, her nose wrinkled in distaste. Mark, her husband, lingered in the doorway, a smug look on his face. "Dad," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "can you do something about this room? It smells like old people." That's it. Those 12 words. A seemingly harmless observation, but it was the final straw. It wasn't just about the smell, it was about the underlying message. I was no longer welcome, no longer relevant, an unwelcome relic in my own home. That sentence, that casual dismissal, was the catalyst. It forced me to confront a painful truth: I had become a ghost in my own house. My presence was tolerated, not cherished. My opinions were dismissed, my contributions minimized. The Blackwood Manor, once a symbol of my love and success, had become a gilded cage. Olivia and Mark had slowly, insidiously, taken over, transforming my haven into their playground. Lavish parties filled the halls, modern art replaced Eleanor's cherished photographs, and my architectural ideas were deemed outdated and irrelevant. I was living in their world, a world where money and appearances mattered more than family and respect. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I realized I had a choice to make. I could continue to fade into the background, a silent observer in my own life, or I could fight back, reclaim my agency, and rewrite the ending to this story. And that's exactly what I decided to do. Okay, here's the continuation of Sam's story, maintaining the requested tone, length, and style. I could continue to fade into the background, a silent observer in my own life, or I could fight back, reclaim my agency, and rewrite the ending to this story. And that's exactly what I decided to do. The stench wasn't just in my room, it was the rot of betrayal clinging to every corner of the Blackwood Manor, a testament to years of love and labor now tainted by greed. My wife, Eleanor, would have been heartbroken. She poured her soul into this house, choosing every fabric, every bloom in the garden, with a vision of family unity that now seemed like a distant dream. The realization that Mark was gambling with my legacy, with Eleanor's memory, lit a fire in me that had been dormant for too long. He saw me as a doddering old man, easily manipulated, a nuisance to be tolerated until he could finally get his hands on what he believed was rightfully his. Olivia, blinded by ambition and his manipulative charm, had become his accomplice. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the principle. It was about the disrespect, the blatant disregard for everything I had built, everything I stood for. I wasn't going to let them win. Calling my lawyer, Arthur, was the first step. Arthur had been a friend of the family for decades, a confidant who understood the intricacies of the Blackwood Trust. Hearing his reassuring voice was like a balm to my wounded spirit. He confirmed what I already suspected: I held all the cards. Olivia and Mark were merely potential beneficiaries, their inheritance contingent upon my death. They had no legal claim to the house, no right to dispose of it as they pleased. That knowledge fueled my resolve. The next few days were a blur of quiet activity. I delved deeper into Mark's financial dealings, uncovering a web of deceit and desperation. He had taken out loans against the supposed future value of the Blackwood Manor, forging my signature on documents that would have landed him in jail. He was living on borrowed time, teetering on the brink of financial ruin. His lavish parties, his extravagant lifestyle, were all a facade, a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of wealth and success. And Olivia, caught up in his charade, had become equally complicit. Finding a buyer for the mansion was surprisingly easy. I contacted a discreet real estate firm specializing in high-end properties for the ultra-rich. They understood my need for secrecy, my desire to avoid publicity. They presented me with a list of potential buyers, individuals who valued privacy and exclusivity. One name stood out: a tech mogul known for his reclusive lifestyle and his appreciation for architectural masterpieces. He was looking for a sanctuary, a place to escape the relentless pressures of the modern world. Olivia and Mark's planned trip to Europe couldn't have come at a better time. They were jetting off to Paris and Rome, indulging in Michelin-starred restaurants and designer boutiques, all on my dime, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing back home. Their absence provided the perfect cover for my plan. While they were sipping champagne and admiring ancient ruins, I was preparing to dismantle their carefully constructed house of cards. The tech mogul arrived for a private viewing on a crisp autumn morning. He walked through the Blackwood Manor, his eyes taking in every detail, every nuance of my design. He appreciated the craftsmanship, the attention to detail, the sense of history that permeated the house. He saw it not just as a building, but as a work of art, a testament to human ingenuity and creativity. He made an offer on the spot, a sum that far exceeded my expectations. Before accepting, I made one last attempt to reach Olivia. I called her in Paris, the sounds of a bustling cafe echoing in the background. I told her I was considering making some changes to the legal arrangements concerning the house. I wanted to gauge her reaction, to see if there was any flicker of remorse, any sign of genuine affection. Her response was chilling. "Dad," she said, her voice cold and dismissive, "you're getting old. Just leave everything to Mark and me. We know what's best." That was it. The final nail in the coffin. The last vestige of hope extinguished. I thanked her for her time and hung up the phone. There was no turning back now. I accepted the tech mogul's offer, signing the papers with a sense of grim satisfaction. The Blackwood Manor was no longer theirs to covet. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. The house, the legacy, the future they envisioned, was about to vanish, replaced by the cold, hard reality of their own making. I sold the mansion, and I didn't feel a single ounce of regret. It was just business. I sold the mansion, and I didn't feel a single ounce of regret. It was just business. Cold, perhaps, but necessary. Olivia and Mark had pushed me too far, and they had underestimated the old architect they thought they could manipulate. They saw dollar signs where I saw memories, a legacy, a family. They saw an obstacle in the way of their ambition, while I saw the crumbling foundation of the future I'd envisioned for them. The arrogance was astonishing. The sheer audacity of Mark, forging my signature, gambling with my life's work, that was the final straw. So, there I was, on the phone with Olivia, giving her one last chance. A chance to redeem herself, a chance to show me that some shred of the daughter I loved still existed beneath the layers of greed and Mark's influence. I told her I was considering some changes to the legal structure of the house. I wanted to gauge her reaction, to see if she'd express any concern for my well-being, any interest in my wishes. But all she cared about was the money. Her voice, laced with Mark's manipulative whispers, was cold and dismissive. "Dad, you're old, just leave everything to Mark and me." That was it. The last thread of hope snapped. The decision was made. The tech mogul, a man who understood the value of privacy and security, was impressed. He saw the Blackwood Manor not just as a house, but as a fortress, a sanctuary. He appreciated the craftsmanship, the detail, the solidity of the structure. He saw the heart and soul I had poured into every corner. He offered a sum that made even my lawyer's eyes widen, a sum that would secure my future and ensure that Olivia and Mark would never see a single penny. The sale went through swiftly and discreetly. The movers came while Olivia and Mark were still gallivanting around Europe, blissfully unaware that their golden goose was about to fly the coop. I watched as they packed up my belongings, the few things I wanted to keep, the mementos of a life well lived. Eleanor's photograph, my drafting tools, the first brick I laid on this property. I found a small, cozy apartment overlooking the ocean. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. It was filled with light and air, and it smelled of salt and freedom, not the stale, decaying scent of entitlement. When Olivia and Mark finally returned, tanned and smug, they were greeted not by the familiar grandeur of the Blackwood Manor, but by a locked gate and a curt message from my lawyer. The mansion was sold. They were no longer welcome. The fallout was spectacular. Olivia screamed, Mark ranted, and my lawyer calmly explained the legal situation. They had no claim. They had nothing. Their carefully constructed plans had crumbled into dust. They tried to plead, to beg, to threaten. They tried to guilt-trip me, reminding me of all they had sacrificed, all they had done for me. But their words were hollow, empty of any genuine emotion. I had seen their true faces, and I was no longer fooled. I cut them off completely. No contact. No communication. They were dead to me. Some might say I was cruel, that I was punishing them too harshly. But I disagree. I was simply reclaiming my life, my legacy. I was choosing peace over chaos, self-respect over manipulation. What happened to them afterwards? I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. I imagine Mark's risky business venture imploded, and Olivia is probably searching for another wealthy man to latch onto. They made their choices, and they have to live with the consequences. The Blackwood Manor is now in the hands of someone who appreciates it, someone who understands its value. And I, Samuel Blackwood, am finally free. Free from the stench of greed, free from the burden of expectation, free to live the rest of my days in peace and quiet, surrounded by the things that truly matter. So, the next time your daughter tells you your room stinks, maybe it's not just your room that needs cleaning. Maybe it's time to reevaluate your entire life and ask yourself, who are you building this for? And is it worth the sacrifice? Sometimes, the most valuable thing you can build is a new foundation, a fresh start, a life free from the toxic influence of others. Don't let them steal your peace, your legacy, your very soul. Because in the end, all you really have is yourself. Take back control and build the life you deserve. What will you build? Okay, here's the continuation of the script, aiming for that suspenseful, first-person narrative, and hitting exactly 1,000 words. So, Olivia's words echoed in my head, just leave everything to Mark and me. The house, my legacy, reduced to a bargaining chip, a simple transaction. That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, what I had to do. The sale went through quickly, quietly. The tech mogul was ecstatic. He appreciated the craftsmanship, the history, the soul of the place, everything Olivia and Mark had dismissed. I even negotiated a clause, no major renovations for 10 years. A small victory, perhaps, but a victory nonetheless. The day they returned from Europe, tanned and smug, was interesting. They breezed in, expecting the usual, the predictable. Olivia immediately started complaining about the lack of decent coffee in Italy. Mark launched into a tedious account of some supposed investment opportunity. I let them ramble, a silent observer in my own home, which, of course, wasn't my home anymore. Then, I dropped the bomb. I sold the house, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia's jaw dropped. Mark's face, usually a mask of carefully cultivated charm, contorted in disbelief. He sputtered, he stammered, he demanded explanations. Olivia just stared, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and fury. I explained, slowly, deliberately, the entire process. The private sale, the buyer, the legal details. I even showed them the paperwork, the irrefutable proof that the Blackwood Manor was no longer theirs to exploit. Mark's anger escalated. He accused me of being senile, of being manipulated, of ruining their lives. Olivia, surprisingly, was quieter. A flicker of something, regret, crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by the familiar cold ambition. You can't do this. Mark roared, his face red with rage. This is our inheritance. Our future. No, Mark, I said, my voice firm. This was never yours. It was a gift, a privilege. And you both squandered it. That night was unpleasant. Accusations flew, threats were made. But I stood my ground. I had the law on my side, and more importantly, I had the moral high ground. They had underestimated me, they had dismissed me as a doddering old fool. They had mistaken my silence for weakness, my love for blind obedience. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles and family drama. Mark, predictably, tried to contest the sale, claiming fraud, undue influence, anything he could think of. He even tried to dredge up some long-forgotten family secrets, desperate to find something, anything, to discredit me. Olivia, torn between her loyalty to Mark and her desire for the inheritance, wavered. She tried to reason with me, to manipulate me, to guilt me into changing my mind. But I remained steadfast. I had made my decision, and I was not going to be swayed. The legal challenges were eventually dismissed. Mark's risky business venture collapsed, leaving him financially ruined and desperate. Olivia, realizing that her future was no longer tied to Mark's, finally left him. In the end, I moved into a small apartment overlooking the ocean. It's nothing like the Blackwood Manor, but it's mine. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and it doesn't smell of greed and entitlement. I spend my days reading, painting, and reflecting on my life. I visit Eleanor's grave often, telling her about everything that's happened. I think she would have approved of my decision. The whole experience was a harsh lesson, a painful reminder that blood isn't always thicker than water. But it also taught me something valuable, that it's never too late to take back control, to reclaim your life, to build something new, something meaningful. The mansion was a symbol of my past, of my love for my family. But it had become a prison, a monument to their greed. Selling it was an act of liberation, a way to break free from the chains of expectation and entitlement. So, what did I build? I built peace of mind. I built a life on my own terms. I built a future free from the toxic influence of others. And you can too. It doesn't matter what you've lost, what mistakes you've made, or how old you are. You always have the power to start over, to rebuild, to create the life you deserve. Take back control and build the life you deserve. What will you build? It starts with a single decision, a single step. Don't let anyone tell you it's too late. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. Build something beautiful, something lasting, something that reflects your true self. And don't ever let anyone tell you that your room stinks. Find a new room, a new house, a new life, if you have to. Just keep building. Continuing from the previous section. The tech mogul, a man who made his fortune from algorithms and understood the cold logic of numbers, saw the Blackwood Manor as more than just a house. He saw it as a sanctuary, a fortress of tranquility in a world of relentless chaos. He appreciated the craftsmanship, the dedication etched into every stone, the silent stories whispered by the walls. He offered a sum that made even my lawyer's eyes widen. It was an offer I couldn't refuse, not just for the money, but for the peace of mind knowing my creation would be appreciated, not exploited. Olivia and Mark, basking in the fleeting glory of their European escapade, remained blissfully unaware of the tectonic shift occurring beneath their feet. They sent postcards filled with insincere sentiments and photographs of themselves posing in front of famous landmarks, each image a carefully constructed facade of happiness. I played along, responding with vague assurances and carefully worded replies, fueling their illusion of control. The guilt gnawed at me, a dull ache in my chest, but the image of Olivia's dismissive words, "It smells like old people," and Mark's calculating gaze kept me resolute. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my agency, about protecting my legacy from their corrosive ambition. The sale went through smoothly, discreetly, efficiently. My lawyer, a seasoned professional with decades of experience navigating the treacherous waters of high-stakes transactions, handled every detail with meticulous precision. The funds were transferred, the paperwork finalized, and the Blackwood Manor officially changed hands. I felt a strange sense of liberation, a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders, a burden of expectation and disillusionment finally shed. I was no longer tethered to that place, to those people, to that suffocating atmosphere of entitlement and greed. I waited for their return, the storm brewing within me a mixture of anticipation and dread. I knew the fallout would be explosive, the accusations venomous, the betrayal profound. But I was prepared. I had armed myself with truth, with evidence, with the unwavering conviction that I was doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for the memory of Eleanor, for the sanctity of our shared dream. They arrived back at the mansion, tanned and rested, their luggage overflowing with souvenirs and expectations. The moment they stepped inside, they sensed something was amiss. The air was different, the atmosphere charged with an unfamiliar tension. The staff, usually effusive in their greetings, were subdued, their eyes darting nervously. "What's going on?" Olivia demanded, her voice sharp with impatience. "Where's Dad?" I emerged from the library, my face etched with a calmness that belied the turmoil within. "Welcome home," I said, my voice steady. "There are some things we need to discuss." The conversation that followed was a maelstrom of accusations, denials, and recriminations. Mark, his face contorted with fury, unleashed a torrent of insults, accusing me of senility, of betrayal, of spite. Olivia, her composure crumbling, wept and pleaded, begging me to reconsider, to reverse my decision. I remained unmoved. I presented them with the evidence of Mark's financial malfeasance, the forged documents, the reckless gambles. I explained the legal ramifications of their actions, the potential consequences of their greed. I watched as their faces paled, as the realization of their impending ruin dawned upon them. "I'm not doing this to punish you," I said, my voice softening. "I'm doing this to protect you. You were spiraling out of control, blinded by ambition, consumed by greed. This is a wake-up call, a chance to start over, to rebuild your lives on a foundation of honesty and integrity." The mansion was sold, the money secured, and my legacy, though altered, was protected. I found a small, quiet place by the sea, far from the gilded cages and suffocating expectations. I began to paint again, to walk along the beach, to rediscover the simple joys of life. The stench was gone, replaced by the fresh, clean scent of the ocean. And though the pain of betrayal lingered, it was slowly replaced by a sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction knowing I had chosen my own path, that I had reclaimed my own life. It wasn't the ending I had envisioned, but it was an ending of my own making. Find a new room, a new house, a new life, if you have to. Just keep building. And remember, the most important foundation is the one built on truth and integrity, the one that can withstand the storms of greed and ambition. Don't let anyone else write your story. Take control, reclaim your agency, and build the life you were meant to live. Okay, let's continue the story. So, there I was, on the phone with my daughter, Olivia. Halfway across the world in some fancy European hotel, all expenses paid by yours truly. I laid it all out, as casually as I could, about changing some legal aspects of the house, the Blackwood Manor, the house I poured my heart and soul into. I wanted, maybe foolishly, to give her one last chance, a lifeline. But her response, fueled by Mark's ambition, was like a cold shower. "Dad, you're old, just leave everything to Mark and me." That was it. The last thread of hope snapped. It wasn't about family anymore, it was about control, about money. I hung up the phone, a strange sense of calm washing over me. The die was cast. I signed the final papers with the tech mogul. He was a man of few words, but his eyes held a certain appreciation for the craftsmanship, the artistry that went into every detail of the house. He saw it not just as a building, but as a legacy, a testament to a life well lived. That meant more to me than any amount of money. The next few days were a whirlwind. The real estate company handled everything with discretion and efficiency. Movers packed up my belongings, carefully cataloging each item. I kept only a few personal things, Eleanor's photo album, my drafting tools, and the original blueprints of the manor. I was leaving the house, but I was taking my memories with me. Olivia and Mark returned from their trip, tanned and relaxed, expecting to resume their reign over the manor. They walked into an empty house, stripped bare of its furnishings. The only thing left was a single envelope on the marble foyer table, addressed to them. Inside, a short, concise letter: "The house has been sold. You are no longer beneficiaries of the trust. Consider this a lesson." The look on their faces when I saw them later, well, it was priceless. Disbelief, anger, and a dawning realization of the magnitude of their mistake. Mark tried to bluster, to threaten legal action, but my lawyer was ready. He presented the evidence of Mark's fraudulent activities, the forged signatures, the misappropriated funds. The game was over. Olivia, for her part, was silent, her eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and resentment. She couldn't understand how her own father could do this to her. But she never understood me, not really. She saw the house as a symbol of wealth, a status symbol. She never saw the love, the dedication, the years of hard work that went into building it. Where did I go? I bought a small cabin in the mountains, far away from the city, far away from the greed and ambition that had poisoned my family. It's simple, rustic, and filled with natural light. I spend my days hiking, reading, and sketching new designs. I'm surrounded by the beauty of nature, the peace and quiet that I so desperately craved. It wasn't about punishing them, not really. It was about reclaiming my life, my legacy. It was about sending a message, that family isn't about money or possessions, it's about love, respect, and loyalty. And when those things are absent, the foundation crumbles. The Blackwood Manor was more than just a house, it was a symbol of my life's work, my family's history. But it had become tainted, corrupted by greed and ambition. Sometimes, you have to tear down the old to build something new, something stronger, something more meaningful. And that's exactly what I did. I sold the mansion and started over. It was the hardest decision of my life, but also the most liberating. I finally understood that true wealth isn't measured in dollars and cents, but in the richness of your relationships, the integrity of your character, and the peace in your heart. And that's something no one can ever take away from you. Remember, your story is yours to write. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. Build your own foundation, one brick at a time. Okay, here's the next part of the script, focusing on building the suspense and developing the characters' motivations. Remember, it needs to be exactly 1,000 words, and in first-person narrative from Sam's perspective. So, I hung up the phone. Olivia's coldness, Mark's manipulative influence echoing in her words, it was the final crack in the foundation. Not of the house, but of our family. I knew then that the house, my legacy, couldn't be entrusted to them. It would be squandered, not cherished. The stench wasn't just in my room, it had permeated their souls. It was the stench of entitlement, of greed, and a complete disregard for the years of love and labor I had poured into Blackwood Manor. The tech mogul, a Mr. Alastair Finch, was a man of few words, but his eyes held a discerning glint. He walked through the house, not touching anything, but observing everything. He saw the craftsmanship, the intricate details, the soul of the place. He understood the story each brick told. He wasn't interested in throwing lavish parties or impressing his friends. He wanted a sanctuary, a place of peace and quiet, a place to think. And he saw that in Blackwood Manor. He made an offer, a generous one, exceeding even my expectations. More than enough to secure my future, and to ensure that Olivia and Mark wouldn't be left destitute. But that wasn't the point. The money wasn't the driving force. It was about control, about reclaiming my legacy, about ensuring that the house, my masterpiece, wouldn't be desecrated. My lawyer, bless his loyal heart, handled the negotiations with Finch's representatives. He was discreet, efficient, and understood the gravity of the situation. He knew about Eleanor, about our dreams for the house, about the unspoken pain I carried. He was more than just a lawyer, he was a friend, a confidant, a silent partner in this unexpected chapter of my life. The days leading up to the closing were a whirlwind. I packed my belongings, not with sadness, but with a sense of liberation. I sorted through Eleanor's things, reminiscing about our life together, about the joy and laughter that once filled these halls. I found old photographs, letters, mementos that brought tears to my eyes. But they were tears of gratitude, not regret. I was grateful for the life we had, for the love we shared, for the memories we created within these walls. Olivia and Mark returned from Europe, tanned and rested, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. They were full of stories about their adventures, about the expensive restaurants they had dined in, about the designer clothes they had bought. They didn't notice the subtle changes in the house, the boxes being packed, the hushed conversations. They were too consumed by their own world, their own ambitions, to see what was happening right in front of them. I decided to play along, to let them bask in their ignorance a little longer. I wanted to see their faces when the truth was revealed, to witness the shock and disbelief that would undoubtedly wash over them. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about justice, about holding them accountable for their actions, about protecting my legacy from their grasping hands. The day of the closing arrived. Mr. Finch and his team arrived promptly, ready to finalize the transaction. My lawyer was there, of course, calm and collected as always. Olivia and Mark were still sleeping, exhausted from their travels. I let them sleep. I wanted them to wake up to a new reality, a reality where they weren't in control, where their plans had been thwarted. I signed the papers, officially transferring ownership of Blackwood Manor to Alastair Finch. A sense of finality washed over me, a mixture of sadness and relief. I had done what I had to do. I had protected my legacy. I had reclaimed my life. Then, I woke Olivia and Mark. I asked them to come downstairs, that there was something important I needed to tell them. They stumbled down, still half asleep, their eyes glazed over. They sat on the sofa, expecting some mundane announcement, some trivial update about the house. I have some news, I said, my voice calm and steady. I sold the house. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia's jaw dropped. Mark's face turned pale. They stared at me, their eyes wide with disbelief. You what? Olivia finally managed to stammer, her voice barely a whisper. I sold the house, I repeated, my voice firm. To Mr. Finch. The closing was this morning. The explosion of anger that followed was predictable. Olivia screamed, accusing me of being senile, of being cruel, of ruining their lives. Mark tried to remain calm, but his eyes betrayed his fury. He demanded to know why, how I could do this to them. Because, I said, my voice rising above their tirade, this house is my legacy. And I refuse to let you squander it. You have shown me nothing but disrespect, disregard, and greed. You have taken my kindness for weakness. And I will not stand for it any longer. I then revealed everything. Mark's financial troubles, his fraudulent activities, his plans to use the house as collateral. I showed them the forged documents, the evidence of their betrayal. They were speechless, their faces etched with shame and guilt. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Get out of my house. And don't ever come back." They left, defeated and humiliated, their dreams of wealth and power shattered. I watched them go, feeling a sense of closure, a sense of peace. I had done what I had to do. I had protected my legacy. And I was finally free. The stench was gone. The air was clear. And I could finally breathe again. The air was clear. And I could finally breathe again. But selling Blackwood Manor, the house I poured my heart and soul into, wasn't about the air quality, was it? It was about the stench of disrespect, the creeping rot of greed that had infected the very foundations I thought I had built so strong. It was about Olivia's words, echoing in my head, a constant reminder that I was no longer seen as the patriarch, the architect, the father, but as an inconvenient relic. Mark, that viper in a tailored suit, he thought he was so clever, whispering behind my back, maneuvering to seize control. He saw the house as a cash cow, a golden ticket to fund his harebrained schemes. He'd even started referring to it as our house when speaking to his cronies, as if he had laid a single brick or contributed anything beyond his insatiable ambition. The audacity! He didn't understand the sweat, the late nights, the countless revisions I poured into every detail, every nook and cranny of that place. It wasn't just a house, it was a testament to my life, my love for Eleanor, my legacy. And Olivia, my own daughter, blinded by the allure of wealth and Mark's empty promises, she allowed it. She stood by and watched as he chipped away at my authority, dismissed my opinions, and slowly transformed our home into a gaudy showcase for his ego. The modern art she started hanging, those soulless pieces that replaced Eleanor's cherished photos, they were a constant reminder of the slow erosion of my place in their lives. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a ghost haunting the halls of a life that was slipping away. Finding out about Mark's financial troubles was like peeling back the layers of an onion, each layer revealing a deeper level of deceit. He wasn't just reckless, he was desperate. He'd leveraged the estate he didn't even legally own, to secure loans for a business venture that was doomed from the start. He forged my signature on preliminary paperwork, a blatant act of fraud that sent a chill down my spine. He was gambling with my legacy, with my family's future, all for the sake of his insatiable greed. That's when I knew I had to act. I couldn't stand by and watch him dismantle everything I had worked for. The revocable trust was my safeguard, a safety net I had put in place years ago, a silent guardian protecting my wishes. Olivia and Mark were only beneficiaries after my death, a fact they conveniently seemed to forget. Legally, they had no right to the house, no right to squander its value. Contacting the luxury real estate company was a delicate dance. I needed someone discreet, someone who understood the value of privacy, someone who could find the right buyer without attracting unwanted attention. Olivia and Mark's trip to Europe, a 2-week extravaganza financed by yours truly, provided the perfect window of opportunity. It was a cruel irony, using their own greed against them, but I felt no remorse. They had pushed me too far, and now they would face the consequences. The tech mogul, a recluse seeking solace and security, was the ideal candidate. He appreciated the craftsmanship, the attention to detail, the sense of timelessness that permeated every room. He saw Blackwood Manor not as a trophy, but as a sanctuary, a place of peace and tranquility. His offer was generous, exceeding my expectations, and I knew it was the right move. But before I finalized the sale, I gave Olivia one last chance. I called her in Europe, masking my intentions, hinting at changes to the legal structure of the house. I wanted to see if there was any flicker of remorse, any sign that she valued our relationship more than the potential inheritance. Her response, cold and calculated, sealed their fate. "Dad, you're old," she said, echoing Mark's sentiments, "just leave everything to Mark and me." That was it. The last thread of hope snapped. The sale went through swiftly and smoothly. The tech mogul took possession, and I walked away, leaving behind a lifetime of memories, a legacy tarnished by greed and betrayal. It was a painful decision, but it was the right one. I had to protect what was left of my dignity, my sanity. The air was clear, yes, but more importantly, I was free. Free from the suffocating weight of their expectations, their manipulations, their utter lack of respect. The money from the sale? That's another story, one that involves a foundation dedicated to supporting young architects, ensuring that their visions are never compromised by greed or short-sightedness. What's next for me? I'm thinking a small cottage by the sea. Somewhere I can hear the waves and the only stench is the glorious smell of salt water. Don't let greed poison your family. Protect your legacy. Your loved ones should appreciate you, not your money. Word count, 1,000. Continuing from the previous section. They finalized the deal just days before Olivia and Mark were due to return. I signed the papers, the tech mogul transferred the funds, and just like that, Blackwood Manor belonged to someone else. The speed of it all was exhilarating, a stark contrast to the slow, agonizing decay I'd witnessed within those walls. I felt a sense of liberation I hadn't experienced in years, a freedom from the suffocating weight of expectation and disappointment. When Olivia and Mark arrived back, tanned and seemingly refreshed from their European jaunt, they found me sitting on the porch swing, sipping lemonade. I watched their car pull up the long driveway, a familiar sight that suddenly felt foreign. Olivia rushed out, her face beaming, ready to regale me with tales of overpriced boutiques and Michelin-starred restaurants. Mark followed, his eyes scanning the property, probably already calculating its future value. "Dad, we had the most amazing time," Olivia exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. "Paris was divine, and Rome, well, you just have to see it to believe it." I smiled faintly. "I'm glad you enjoyed yourselves." Mark, ever the pragmatist, cut to the chase. "So, Dad, about those legal aspects you mentioned. Anything we need to discuss?" That's when I dropped the bomb. "Actually, yes. I sold the house." The color drained from Olivia's face. "You what? You sold Blackwood Manor? You can't be serious." Mark's eyes narrowed, his jovial facade crumbling. "What is the meaning of this, Sam? You had no right." I calmly explained the legal situation, the revocable trust, my sole trustee status. I detailed the sale, the new owner, and the substantial sum of money now sitting in a separate account. But where are we going to live?" Olivia wailed, her voice rising in hysteria. "This is our home. Our inheritance. You'll have to find somewhere else," I said, my voice firm. "And as for the inheritance, consider it gone. I'm establishing a foundation for young architects, funding scholarships and innovative projects. It's a far better use of the money than enabling your lifestyle." Mark's anger reached a boiling point. "You old fool. You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yes, Mark," I replied, meeting his gaze. "I finally understand what I should have done a long time ago. I prioritized building a house over building character. I focused on creating a legacy in stone and mortar, neglecting the legacy I should have been building in my children's hearts." Olivia, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried a different tactic. "Dad, please, you can't do this to us. We'll change, we promise. We'll be better. Just give us another chance." I shook my head. "The time for chances is over. You had your chance, and you squandered it. You saw this house as a source of wealth, a means to an end. You never appreciated it for what it truly was, a home, a sanctuary, a place built with love. And when you showed me that you no longer valued that, you forfeited your right to it. I stood up, leaving them standing there, dumbfounded and defeated, on the porch of a house that was no longer theirs. I had reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my legacy. I had finally understood that true wealth lies not in possessions but in principles, in the values we instill in those we love. And most importantly, that your loved ones should appreciate you, not your money. It was a harsh lesson, but one they desperately needed to learn. Now, I am off to travel the world, to see those architectural marvels I have always dreamed of, and finally, to live my life on my own terms. Perhaps, just perhaps, they will learn to appreciate the value of hard work and genuine connection. Now, I am off to travel the world, to see those architectural marvels I have always dreamed of, and finally, to live my life on my own terms. Perhaps, just perhaps, they will learn to appreciate the value of hard work and genuine connection. But let me tell you, the story doesn't end with the sale. It's more of a new chapter, a twist I didn't even see coming. The tech mogul, a man named Silas Thorne, was eccentric, yes, but he had a keen eye for detail, an appreciation for craftsmanship that mirrored my own. He saw the Blackwood Manor not just as a house, but as a living, breathing piece of art. He promised to preserve its integrity, its soul, and that, more than anything, gave me peace of mind. The money, of course, was substantial, far more than Mark had ever imagined he could squeeze out of it. But it wasn't about the money for me. It was about reclaiming my life, about severing the ties that had become so toxic. The closing was swift, discreet. My lawyer handled everything, ensuring that Olivia and Mark remained blissfully unaware until the very last moment. I pictured their faces when they returned from their European jaunt, expecting to waltz back into their opulent domain, only to find strangers moving in, the locks changed, their keys useless. A small part of me felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by a wave of liberation. I had taken control, rewritten the narrative, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But the real shock came a few weeks later. I was in Rome, marveling at the Pantheon, when I received a call from my lawyer. Mark had filed a lawsuit, claiming that I was mentally incompetent, that I had been manipulated into selling the house, that he and Olivia were the rightful heirs and deserved compensation. He was grasping at straws, desperately trying to salvage what he thought was his. I wasn't surprised, not really. I knew Mark's ambition knew no bounds. What did surprise me was Olivia's involvement. I had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that she would see reason, that she would understand the depth of his betrayal, the extent of his manipulation. But she stood by him, her ambition apparently outweighing any sense of filial loyalty. It stung, I won't lie. It confirmed my deepest fears, that the values I had tried to instill in her had been warped, twisted by the allure of wealth and power. The legal battle was messy, protracted. Mark threw everything he had at it, dredging up old family secrets, twisting truths, attempting to paint me as a senile old man. But I had anticipated this. I had meticulously documented everything, every conversation, every transaction, every act of deceit. My lawyer, a seasoned veteran of the courtroom, dismantled their case piece by piece, exposing Mark's financial misdeeds, his fraudulent activities, his blatant disregard for the law. The judge ultimately ruled in my favor, dismissing Mark's claims with prejudice. The ruling was scathing, condemning Mark's actions and questioning Olivia's judgment. It was a victory, yes, but a bittersweet one. I had won the battle, but I had lost my daughter in the process. The lawsuit revealed the true nature of their relationship, a parasitic bond fueled by greed and ambition. Olivia, blinded by her desire for wealth, had allowed herself to be used, manipulated by Mark's insatiable hunger for power. The aftermath was predictable. Mark, disgraced and facing potential criminal charges, vanished, leaving Olivia to pick up the pieces. She tried to reach out to me, to apologize, to explain. But the damage was done. The trust was broken. The foundation, once so solid, had crumbled into dust. I couldn't forgive her, not yet. Maybe someday, down the road, we could rebuild something, but for now, the chasm was too wide, the wounds too deep. So, here I am, a nomad of sorts, wandering the world, exploring new cultures, rediscovering myself. I've learned a valuable lesson, a hard-won truth: you can build a house, but you can't build a family. Family is something you nurture, something you earn, something you protect. And sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is to walk away, to sever the ties that bind, to let go of the people you thought you knew. The stench, as my daughter so eloquently put it, wasn't just in my room. It was in the very foundations of the life I had built, a life that had become suffocating, toxic, and ultimately, unsustainable. Now, I breathe free. It was in the very foundations of the life I had built, a life that had become suffocating, toxic, and ultimately, unsustainable. Now, I breathe free. The Blackwood Manor, once my sanctuary, my testament to love and family, had morphed into a gilded cage. But I wasn't trapped. Not yet. I remember the day Eleanor and I first walked this land, hand in hand, envisioning our future home. We imagined laughter echoing through the halls, children playing in the garden, a haven where generations could thrive. And for a time, it was exactly that. Eleanor's touch was everywhere, in the carefully chosen fabrics, the vibrant flower arrangements, the warmth that permeated every room. But Eleanor was gone, and with her, that warmth slowly faded. Olivia and Mark, they saw the house differently. They saw it as an asset, a trophy, a symbol of their success. The parties became louder, the renovations more extravagant, the atmosphere, colder. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a relic of a bygone era. Mark, with his slick-back hair and predatory smile, always made me feel like I was in the way, a burden on their extravagant lifestyle. He'd pat me on the shoulder, a condescending gesture, and say, "Don't worry about a thing, Sam. We've got it all handled." But they didn't. They were dismantling everything I had built, brick by painful brick. Olivia, my own daughter, had become a stranger too. The sweet, loving girl who used to climb onto my lap and ask me to tell her stories had transformed into a woman obsessed with appearances and social status. She seemed to measure her worth by the size of her diamond ring and the number of Instagram followers she had. The comment about my room, that casual dismissal, was the final straw. It wasn't just about the smell, it was about the disrespect, the complete lack of empathy. It was a clear message: I no longer belonged. So, I decided to take control. I wasn't going to let them slowly erode my legacy. I wasn't going to become a footnote in their shallow narrative. The blueprints, tucked away in that hidden safe, became my weapon. They were more than just architectural drawings, they were a testament to my vision, my passion, my life's work. They held the secrets of the house, the intricate details that only I understood. Discovering Mark's financial misdeeds was like uncovering a festering wound. The loan applications, the forged signatures, the risky investments, it was all there, laid bare in black and white. He was gambling with my family's future, jeopardizing everything I had worked so hard to create. And Olivia, blinded by her ambition and her infatuation with Mark, was complicit in his scheme. The quiet sale was my only option. I couldn't risk a public spectacle, a messy legal battle. I needed to act swiftly and decisively, before they could do any more damage. The tech mogul, a man who appreciated the craftsmanship and the history of the house, was the perfect buyer. He saw the Blackwood Manor for what it truly was, a masterpiece, a work of art. He understood the value of privacy and tranquility, the importance of preserving the past. That call to Olivia in Europe, that was my last attempt to reach her, to salvage our relationship. I offered her a chance to reconnect, to understand my perspective. But she dismissed me, echoing Mark's callous disregard. That was the moment I knew I was doing the right thing. The money from the sale went into a trust, carefully managed to ensure that future generations would be provided for, but with safeguards in place to prevent Mark from ever getting his hands on it. The house is gone. My house. But the memory, the legacy, the lessons learned, those remain. And I am free. Free from the suffocating expectations, the toxic environment, the constant judgment. I've traded a mansion for peace of mind, a gilded cage for open skies. What's next? I'm not entirely sure. But I know one thing, I'll be building again, but this time, I'll be building for myself. I'll be building a life filled with purpose, authenticity, and genuine connection. And perhaps, just perhaps, I'll finally find the true meaning of home. What about you? Are you living a life that's truly yours, or are you trapped in a gilded cage of your own making? It's never too late to tear down the walls and build something new. Share your story in the comments below. What's one thing you're doing to reclaim your life and build a future that truly reflects your values? Let's inspire each other to create lives of authenticity and purpose. Previously. Every brick in this house tells a story. My wife, Eleanor, chose the paint color for this wall. I discussed that window frame on a rainy night. I built a paradise for my family. I just didn't expect to become a ghost in it. Then, my own daughter, Olivia, stood in the doorway of my room, her face wrinkled in distaste, and said, loud enough for Mark to hear, "Dad, can you do something about this room? It smells like old people." That was the turning point, the moment I realized the foundation I thought I'd built was crumbling beneath my feet. Eleanor's photos, once vibrant reminders of our shared life, were slowly replaced by cold, sterile modern art. Mark's lavish parties echoed through the halls, his voice booming, "Our house," as if I were merely a guest. My architectural ideas, once celebrated, were now dismissed as relics of a bygone era. I even overheard Mark boasting to his partner, "It's just a matter of time. The old man will soon hand over all the control." But Olivia's warning, that careless remark about the smell, wasn't just tension, it was the overflowing cup, the stark affirmation that in their eyes, I was no longer the owner, but a bothersome antique. So, I retreated. Not with anger, but with a quiet resolve. I returned to my room, the room that apparently reeked of obsolescence, and instead of wallowing in self-pity, I opened a safe hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside wasn't a pile of cash, but something far more valuable, the original blueprints, the deeds, the meticulously documented history of Blackwood Manor. Mark, the financial whiz, thought he had it all figured out. But I knew something he didn't. I called my old lawyer, a friend who had been with me since the beginning, a man I trusted implicitly. He confirmed what I already suspected, the house was held in a revocable trust. I was the sole trustee. Olivia and Mark were merely passive beneficiaries, waiting for their inheritance. Legally, they had no real ownership. That's when I started digging. Quietly, methodically. I soon realized Mark wasn't just greedy, he was desperate. He was in deep financial trouble, teetering on the edge of ruin. And then I discovered the truth, Mark had secretly used the estate he didn't actually own, as collateral for a massive loan to fund a risky, half-baked business venture. He had even forged my signature on some preliminary paperwork. The audacity. They don't just want my house, I thought. They're gambling with my legacy, my life's work. The stench wasn't coming from my room, it was emanating from their insatiable greed. The plan started to form in my mind, a plan as intricate and detailed as the blueprints of Blackwood Manor itself. I wouldn't confront them directly. I wouldn't engage in a messy, public feud. Instead, I would use their own avarice against them. I wouldn't just sell the house, I would orchestrate a silent, surgical removal, leaving them with nothing but the bitter taste of their own ambition. I didn't put the house on the open market, with its endless showings and intrusive questions. Instead, I contacted a discreet luxury real estate firm, specializing in private transactions for the ultra-wealthy, individuals who valued privacy and exclusivity above all else. As luck would have it, Olivia and Mark announced their plans for a 2-week jaunt to Europe, all expenses paid, of course, by yours truly. It was the perfect opportunity. While they were off gallivanting, I arranged a private viewing for a potential buyer, a reclusive tech mogul, a man who had made his fortune revolutionizing the digital world but now craved a quiet, secure sanctuary. He wasn't interested in the glitz and glamour of the Hollywood Hills. He wanted substance, solidity, a place where he could truly unwind. The beauty and craftsmanship of Blackwood Manor, the very essence of my design, completely captivated him. He saw the quality, the attention to detail, the enduring legacy that I had poured my heart and soul into. He appreciated the quiet elegance, the timeless appeal, the feeling of being surrounded by something truly special. Before finalizing the deal, before signing on the dotted line, I made one last attempt. I called Olivia in Europe. I gave her one final chance, a chance to reconnect, to understand, to salvage what was left of our relationship. I said, "Olivia, I'm considering making some changes to the legal structure of the house." Mark, undoubtedly whispering in her ear, prompted her to respond coldly, "Dad, you're getting old. Just leave everything to Mark and me. You don't need to worry about the details." That was it. The final nail in the coffin. The confirmation that their greed had completely consumed them. The sale went through swiftly, seamlessly. The tech mogul was thrilled to acquire such a magnificent property, and I was relieved to be free of the toxic atmosphere that had enveloped Blackwood Manor. They returned from Europe, tanned, rested, and ready to claim their prize. The look on their faces when they discovered the truth, when they realized that I had sold the house right out from under them, was priceless. The mansion, the legacy, the supposed inheritance, all gone. Poof. The silence was deafening. The accusations flew like poison darts, but I remained calm, unmoved. I had reclaimed my life, my legacy, and my peace of mind. The house may be gone, but the memories, the lessons, and the strength I found in facing their betrayal remain. What about you? What's one thing you're doing to reclaim your life and build a future that truly reflects your values? Let's inspire each other to create lives of authenticity and purpose. Share your story in the comments below. Maybe you're shedding toxic relationships, pursuing a long-lost passion, or simply setting boundaries to protect your mental health. Whatever it is, let's build a community of resilience and self-discovery. Remember, it's never too late to rebuild, to redesign, to create a life that truly resonates with your soul. Don't let anyone else dictate your happiness or your worth. You are the architect of your own destiny. Okay, here's the continuation of the script, approximately 1,000 words, written in the requested style and tone. "Your room stinks," she'd said, and the words, sharper than any chisel I'd ever used, echoed in the vast halls of Blackwood Manor. I'd built that house, brick by painstaking brick, poured my heart and soul into every archway, every window, every meticulously planned garden. It was more than just a house, it was a testament to a life well lived, a monument to my love for Eleanor, my late wife, and a legacy I hope to pass down to Olivia, my daughter. But legacies, I was beginning to learn, can crumble from within, not from the outside forces you expect, but from the very people you built them for. Mark, her husband, stood just behind her, a smirk playing on his lips. He'd never liked the house, too old-fashioned, too me. He saw only the dollar signs, the potential for profit, the bragging rights that came with owning such a prestigious property. He was a parasite, slowly draining the life out of something I'd created with so much love. I used to think I was building a strong foundation for them, providing them with security and comfort. Now, it felt like I was building a gilded cage, trapping myself in a situation where I was no longer welcome. Eleanor's photos, once proudly displayed throughout the house, were being replaced with cold, impersonal modern art. My architectural ideas, once valued and sought after, were now dismissed as outdated, relics of a bygone era. The house, my sanctuary, was being transformed into something I no longer recognized. It was a slow, insidious process, a chipping away at my spirit, a constant reminder that I was no longer in control. I'd overheard Mark talking to a business partner, his voice dripping with avarice. "It's just a matter of time," he'd said. "The old man will soon hand over all control." He saw me as an obstacle, a hurdle to overcome, a nuisance to be tolerated until he could finally get his hands on the prize. And Olivia, my own daughter, was complicit, blinded by ambition and the allure of wealth. She'd become a stranger, a puppet dancing to Mark's tune. That's when I realized the stench wasn't coming from my room. It was coming from their greed, their insatiable hunger for more. It was a moral decay that permeated the very walls of Blackwood Manor. And I, the architect, the builder, the man who had dedicated his life to creating beauty and stability, was about to dismantle it all. I called my old lawyer, a man I'd known for decades, a man I trusted implicitly. He confirmed what I already suspected: the house was in a revocable trust, with me as the sole trustee. Olivia and Mark were passive beneficiaries, entitled to nothing until after my death. Legally, they had no claim, no right to the property. They were merely waiting, salivating, anticipating the day they could finally inherit. I started digging, quietly, discreetly. I discovered Mark was in serious financial trouble, his risky business ventures teetering on the brink of collapse. He'd secretly used the estate, the very house he didn't own, as collateral for a loan, forging my signature on some preliminary paperwork. He was gambling with my legacy, with my life's work, with the future I had envisioned for my family. That's when the decision was made. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't let their greed consume everything I had built. I contacted a luxury real estate company, one that specialized in discreet, private transactions for the ultra-wealthy. I didn't want a public spectacle, a bidding war, a circus. I wanted a buyer who appreciated the house for its beauty, its history, its architectural significance. Olivia and Mark announced their plans for a 2-week trip to Europe, all expenses paid, of course, by yours truly. It was the perfect opportunity. While they were gallivanting around the continent, indulging in their lavish lifestyle, I arranged a private viewing for a potential buyer, a reclusive tech mogul, a man who valued privacy, security, and exquisite design. He walked through the halls of Blackwood Manor, his eyes widening with admiration. He saw the craftsmanship, the attention to detail, the timeless elegance that I had poured into every corner of the house. He was captivated, enchanted, completely sold. Before finalizing the deal, I called Olivia in Europe. I gave her one last chance, a chance to redeem herself, to show me that there was still a spark of the daughter I once knew. I'm thinking of making some changes to the legal aspects of the house, I said, my voice carefully neutral. I wanted to discuss it with you first. Her response, cold and dismissive, sealed their fate. Dad, you're getting old, she said, her voice tinged with impatience. Just leave everything to Mark and me. We'll take care of it. Those words, more than any insult, more than any act of betrayal, confirmed my decision. I sold the house. Every brick, every window, every memory. I packed my bags, not with sadness, but with a sense of liberation. I was free from the stench of their greed, free from the weight of their expectations, free to start anew. And so, the architect went west, not to build another mansion, but to build a new life, a life free from the constraints of the past, a life defined by my own terms. The house was gone, but my spirit remained. And that, I realized, was the true legacy. Don't let anyone else dictate your happiness or your worth. You are the architect of your own destiny, and sometimes, the best thing you can build is a new foundation, far away from the crumbling ruins of the past. Remember, the value isn't in the bricks and mortar, but in the strength of your own character. So, what are you waiting for? What foundation will you build today? So, what are you waiting for? What foundation will you build today? Are you going to let someone else dictate the blueprint of your life, or will you reclaim the drafting table and design your own masterpiece? Because let me tell you, that's exactly what I had to do. Olivia's words, those cutting, dismissive words about the smell of my room, they weren't just an insult, they were a symptom. A symptom of a deeper rot, a decay that had been slowly creeping into the foundations of the Blackwood Manor, and more importantly, into my family. I wasn't just hurt, I was profoundly disappointed. I had envisioned this house as a legacy, a place where generations would gather, share stories, and build their own lives. I poured my heart and soul into every detail, from the handcrafted moldings to the meticulously chosen stones in the fireplace. It was more than just a house, it was an extension of my love for Eleanor, and a tangible representation of my hopes for Olivia and her future. But somewhere along the line, that vision had been twisted, corrupted by greed and ambition. Mark, with his slicked-back hair and empty promises, had always been a source of unease for me. I saw his ambition, his relentless pursuit of wealth, and I worried about its impact on Olivia. I hoped that her inherent goodness, her capacity for empathy, would temper his excesses. But I was wrong. Instead, he seemed to have amplified her own latent desires for a life of extravagance, a life built on shallow foundations. The parties, the constant renovations, the disregard for the history and soul of the house, it all pointed to a growing disconnect, a chasm widening between my values and theirs. The house was becoming a trophy, a symbol of their status, rather than a home filled with love and laughter. And I, the architect, the builder, was being relegated to the role of a tolerated guest, an inconvenient reminder of a past they were eager to erase. That night, after Olivia's comment, I didn't sleep. I walked through the silent halls of the mansion, touching the walls, tracing the lines of the architecture. I remembered Eleanor's smile as we finalized the plans, her excitement as each room took shape. I remembered Olivia's laughter as a child, echoing through the halls during hide-and-seek games. Those memories were precious, but they were also tinged with a profound sadness. Had I failed? Had I built a house that was too grand, too imposing, that ultimately fostered resentment instead of connection? The answer, I realized, wasn't in the bricks and mortar. It was in the hearts of the people who inhabited it. And their hearts, it seemed, had hardened. So, I made a decision. A radical, perhaps even reckless decision. I decided to dismantle the stage upon which their drama was being played out. I decided to sell the mansion. It wasn't about the money. It was about reclaiming my life, about asserting my agency, about refusing to be a pawn in their twisted game. It was about proving that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in integrity, in purpose, and in the unwavering pursuit of one's own vision. And it was about teaching Olivia a valuable lesson, a lesson she desperately needed to learn, that some things are more precious than money, and that family loyalty cannot be bought or sold. The process was swift, discreet, and entirely legal. My lawyer, bless his loyal heart, navigated the complexities of the revocable trust with precision and unwavering support. He understood my motives, my pain, and my determination to right a wrong. The tech mogul, a man who valued privacy and appreciated the architectural integrity of the house, was the perfect buyer. He saw the beauty, the craftsmanship, the soul of the mansion, and he was willing to pay a considerable sum for it. But before I signed the final papers, I gave Olivia one last chance. I called her in Europe, during their extravagant vacation, and I hinted at changes to the legal arrangements surrounding the house. I wanted to see if there was any flicker of concern, any sign of genuine affection, any indication that she valued our relationship more than the potential inheritance. Her response, delivered with Mark's cold prompting in the background, sealed their fate. "Dad, you're old," she said, "just leave everything to Mark and me." Those words, devoid of any warmth or empathy, confirmed my decision. The stench wasn't just in my room, it had permeated their souls. I hung up the phone, a wave of sadness washing over me, followed by a surge of resolve. I signed the papers, and with that single act, I severed the ties that bound me to that corrupted version of my dream. The Blackwood Manor was no longer my burden. It was someone else's to cherish, or to squander. And me? I was free. Free to build a new foundation, a new life, based on values that truly mattered. So, what will you do with your foundation? Don't let someone else's greed dictate your life. Reclaim your power, rebuild your dreams, and create a legacy that is truly worth leaving behind. 45:00 End. So, I sold the house. Packed my bags, signed the papers, and just like that, Blackwood Manor belonged to someone else. Olivia and Mark returned from their European vacation, tanned and ready to celebrate their impending inheritance. The look on their faces when they saw the moving trucks, priceless. Utter disbelief, followed by a slow, dawning horror. Mark's face, usually so carefully composed, crumpled like a discarded blueprint. Olivia just stood there, mouth agape, like a fish pulled from water. The aftermath wasn't pretty. Accusations flew, threats were made. Mark, predictably, turned nasty. He ranted about his rights, about how I was ruining their lives. Olivia, caught between her husband's fury and the loss of her comfortable existence, wailed about how I was being unfair. Unfair? After they'd already mentally spent my life savings, gambled with my legacy. I simply presented them with the facts. The house was legally mine to sell. Mark's fraudulent activities were now exposed, and his risky business venture teetered on the brink of collapse. Olivia, suddenly realizing the gravity of the situation, tried a different tactic. Tears, apologies, promises to change. But the foundation was cracked, the trust shattered beyond repair. I'd spent a lifetime building, and they'd nearly destroyed it all for their own selfish desires. Where did I go? I bought a small, unassuming cottage by the sea. No grand architecture, no sprawling gardens, just the sound of the waves and the salty air. It's simple, peaceful, and most importantly, it's mine. I filled it with photos of Eleanor, reminders of a love that was genuine, a life well lived. It's a space where I can truly be myself, without the weight of expectation or the stench of greed. Looking back, I don't regret building Blackwood Manor. It was a testament to my love for Eleanor, a symbol of the family I hoped to create. But I do regret not seeing the cracks sooner, not recognizing the rot that was festering beneath the surface. I was so focused on the bricks and mortar that I missed the decay within. My daughter's comment, "Your room stinks," wasn't just about the smell. It was a symptom of a deeper problem, a reflection of the disrespect and entitlement that had taken root. It was a wake-up call, a harsh reminder that sometimes, the people you love the most can disappoint you the most. So, what's the takeaway from all this? What lesson can you learn from my story? It's simple: protect what's yours. Build your own foundation, not just with material possessions, but with integrity, honesty, and genuine connection. Don't let anyone, not even family, take advantage of your generosity or undermine your values. Be vigilant, be aware, and be prepared to walk away when necessary. And most importantly, remember that true wealth isn't measured in dollars and cents. It's measured in the love you share, the memories you create, and the peace you find within yourself. Don't sacrifice your well-being for the sake of appeasing others or clinging to material possessions. Learn to recognize the signs of greed and manipulation. Trust your instincts, even when they tell you something you don't want to hear. And never, ever, let anyone make you feel like a ghost in your own life. This isn't just about a house. It's about reclaiming your power, redefining your legacy, and creating a life that is truly your own. It's about building a foundation of self-respect that no one can ever take away. So, go out there and build something amazing, not just for yourself, but for the world. Build with love, build with integrity, and build something that will last. And if someone tells you your room stinks, maybe it's time to pack your bags and find a new view. Your peace of mind is worth more than any mansion. Don't be afraid to start over. Embrace the challenge, learn from your mistakes, and create a future that is filled with joy, purpose, and genuine connection. Remember, you are the architect of your own life. Build it wisely.